which obviously got revealed to be Civil War. Yet, despite the fact that we knew Infinity War was coming and Civil War and all these like massive Marvel movies that are going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars and are going to be groundbreaking for what they show, the one that caught my eye the most was Thor Ragnarok, because I really enjoy the Thor movies, and it's weird because I wouldn't place them above, say, the Captain America trilogy. That's easily my favorite.
Yeah.
But there was something about the Thor movies that I really enjoyed because it was so separate from the Marvel universe, yet also very connected, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
because
that makes sense. The characters he deals with,
right,
the things that he finds.
Because the characters he interacts with, like the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif, I'll get to them later, but they're distinct in their part in the universe on Asgard. And I was always fascinated by Asgard as a planet and the portrayal of it. And just about an hour or 2 hours ago, the original Thor was on FX. And I didn't watch all of it, but I watched the opening scenes and such. And that first shot of Asgard is amazing.
Yeah.
And this is 2011 Thor. This is before Marvel had a ton of money in its pocket. And that's why seeing Thor at the beginning and the original Thor being such a Shakespearean movie with the conflict between Thor and Loki and who gets the crown. And then the Dark World obviously taking a step back. A lot of people don't like that movie. A lot of people...
I'm not a big fan of the Dark World.
Yeah, people call Malekith the worst villain in Marvel.
Yeah.
I probably don't disagree with that, honestly. But...
Plus those human characters. What's her face?
Jane.
Girl from Girls.
Natalie Portman.
The other girl. The other girl.
I forget what her name is, but she's from the show Two Broke Girls, I believe.
Yeah, she wasn't funny at all. She was terrible.
Yeah.
Bad choice.
Yeah, and so... Back to Thor Ragnarok, when it was first announced, I was so excited to see this movie, and seeing the title sequence and how dark, and I was excited for a dark Marvel movie. And I know that sounds weird because everyone's like, oh, well, don't you go to the movies to have fun? Like, even when we were leaving Thor Ragnarok, I remember someone next to me was like, yeah, like, I don't understand what the complaints are. Like, you go to the movies to have fun. And I get that.
Yeah.
But Kevin Feige said when this movie was announced, he said, Thor Ragnarok is going to be to Phase 3 what Captain America the Winter Soldier was to Phase 2. Basically meaning this is going to be the game changer movie.
I mean, he wasn't wrong.
He wasn't wrong, but the execution of it...
Yeah, was way different than...
yes, because...
The Winter Soldier.
The Winter Soldier... In like this political thriller, you get revealed that Hydra is like a parasite and it was growing within S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America has to make the decision to just burn it all to the ground. You can't try and save S.H.I.E.L.D. when Hydra's taken over too much. You just have to get rid of it all. And so I was excited to see the conflict on Asgard and see basically an apocalypse on a giant planet. And by the end of this movie, I was rooting for Asgard to be burned to the ground because I felt that no characters took it seriously. And
not even Thor. By the end of it, not even Thor.
So that's where my main gripe is coming from, because when this movie first started out and he does the thing with Surtur and Surtur's talking and he's very comic booky, and I know it's like, well, what do you expect? He's like a fire demon man, but like he's kind of like he's on the screen. He's all, I am Surtur, and I am destined to destroy your world. And it just, from that moment, I realized what it was gonna be, and I tried to have fun in the movie where it was aiming to have fun, as we saw with like characters like Korg and Meek. Meek, our favorite.
I love Meek. You'll talk about Meek later.
Yeah, we will. But just overall, that's why. That's my main complaints of why I was expecting something different. Because this, I think, if I take my expectations out of it, this is a good movie.
Yeah, it is. It is a good movie.
But I'm not going to like we all expect different things. And my expectation for this movie was a completely different movie. I'm not even going to say they were similar, because what I wanted from this movie, I did get in, like, Surtur just like destroying Asgard, and
at the end of the movie.
But the fact of how quick it was and how
anticlimactic.
Yeah, it just really didn't work for me.
Yeah. So I actually differ than you. When they were announcing the movies, Thor Ragnarok was on the below the radar. I didn't care much for the Thor movies, and I mean, I like dark movies, but I like the funny stuff more, I guess.
That's fair.
And that was actually below the radar. I was more excited for Guardians 2 and Infinity War to happen, and I was actually surprised when they changed the title. I'm like, what's going on now? It's because it was straying away from the Dark World, which I think they did on purpose, because Dark World's the worst reviewed Marvel movie. Yeah. It's not a bad movie. It's like 66% on Rotten Tomatoes. And Guardians has so much praise. And this movie wasn't similar to Guardians. I guess they're in space. Could be the only thing that's similar. There's different tones and stuff. But the movie surprised me because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which I guess we both agreed on. But you had a little bit more dislike, and I liked it more for that.
Yeah, that's fair. Just to get into specific scenes now, I was happy to see Doctor Strange in this movie at the very beginning. His scene felt very out of place, though.
We already kind of knew a whole scene. They showed us the beer thing.
Yeah.
A couple movies ago.
Yeah, well, it was at the end credits of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we knew the scene was coming, but it did feel very yeah. I wouldn't say it took me out of the movie, but it clearly felt out of place.
Yeah, how did they even get there? Like, he got a magic card. He's like,
Loki got the sling ring, and so he was left with the address, and he was basically just kind of like introducing himself, and hey, I'm Doctor Strange. We're probably gonna team up and fight Thanos in the next movie. We just thought we'd make it a little more convenient for the audience to see us together, and so that way they remember us. Yeah, and then let's get into Odin's death in this. Oh man, see, I just don't get it, because he's there in Norway. He talks to his two sons, and then just kind of disappears. And I don't get the point of even having Odin in this movie. I get that he was Thor's vessel for saying you're more than just a hammer. I get that, but his death just felt so anticlimactic to me.
Yeah, I think they needed him to die for Thor to want to save Asgard at all, because at the end of the movie, his ghost tells him that Asgard's a people, not a place.
Yeah.
But I think they could have possibly killed him off a little later in the movie. So, maybe, he went back to Asgard and, was killed by Hela. That would be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I see what they, because, that would have been a cool thing for them to talk again. She talks about how they used to fight all the time. It'd be interesting to see that, those characters interact. But I see why they did it. I mean, it could be Anthony Hopkins is older now, too.
Yeah.
Think about that. What if he just didn't want to do it? They're not going to tell Sir Anthony Hopkins to do something he doesn't want to do.
Exactly. And actually, I remember at the end of Thor: The Dark World, Anthony Hopkins said, when they asked him about coming back for a potential third movie, he mentioned how something about, I think, I've done two, I think that's enough. So the fact that he was even in this movie at all, I think, was surprising. I don't think he expected to want to come back, or maybe he was just told, oh, your scenes aren't going to be too long.
He probably did all his filming in one day.
Honestly, probably, yeah. For going off of Odin's scenes of how he's just living in Norway, essentially, I want to go to his other scene, but it's really just Loki. So, at the end of The Dark World, when I saw it 4 years ago now, in 2013, it's crazy to see how, distant these movies are. But when it's revealed that Loki is sitting on the throne of Asgard, I was so, that was one of the most, I have to see the sequel right now. Like, I was so excited to see what does this mean? Where's Odin? What's Loki doing? And then the reveal of just, oh no, he's just making statues, putting on plays, and then Thor gets to Asgard, and then Thor mentions he knows something's up, but Thor, for the best of his knowledge, thinks Loki's dead because he saw him die. And so he just grabs Odin and threatens to kill him with Mjolnir, and obviously he turns back into Loki, and Thor's like, oh, I knew it, but, like, you saw him die. Like, what makes you think that? And I get that, like, oh, he's the god of mischief, I never doubt anything, but it's been years since he's interacted with Loki. So, I don't get it. But a positive from that scene, that play that they put on of this, that was amazing. Also, Liam Hemsworth played Thor in that.
Luke Hemsworth.
Luke Hemsworth, yeah, sorry. They're all actually kind of big actors now. But yeah, that was really cool to see Matt Damon as Loki. He did that. So tricky. Yeah, he did that scene because him and Chris Hemsworth are actually really good friends, is what I heard. And yeah, that was just a cool moment because I always love cameos from major actors, especially in a Marvel movie, because you seem to only see Stan Lee. Stan Lee's cameo, nothing crazy, just kind of the barber for Thor.
It's kind of funny.
Cuts his hair.
Interaction. He usually doesn't get much interaction. He's like, old man, do not cut my hair.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a cool little scene. Meek? We want to get into Meek?
Meek.
So, we'll fast forward because I feel like we've talked about a lot in the beginning. Thor eventually gets onto this trash planet run by the Grandmaster, and it's essentially a planet just for wasting garbage, but in the city of the planet, they have this thing called the Contest of Champions, and the Grandmaster has a champion. Obviously, we see in the trailers, it's the Hulk. And when Thor is first there, he's interacting with all the prisoners there, and we meet Korg and Meek. And Korg is actually, I guess they kind of retconned his role in the Dark World, because Korg is in the Dark World. You know this, right?
Yeah.
But he's obviously a very different Korg. He's a giant rock monster that Thor defeats at the very beginning of the Dark World.
Was he Korg in that movie?
That's the same Korg. Like he was I don't know if they gave him the name in the movie, but in the credits he was known as Korg.
Really?
Yeah. So this one took Korg and they kind of made him more comedic. Obviously voiced by Taika Waititi and the director of this movie, and 99% of his lines were hilarious. We wanted to start a revolution, but we didn't have enough pamphlets, and he was really.
This is Meek. He's got knives for hands.
Yeah, Korg was a riot. I loved Korg. When him and all his interactions with Thor were great, and then obviously we see him throughout the movie, kind of just like a presence. He probably doesn't have more than like 10 minutes of screen time. But he never feels like he's like missing from the movie, if that makes sense. I was
happy to see him come back every time.
Yeah, for sure. And then Meek, we obviously don't see much with Meek. He doesn't talk, but he just he's always in the background swinging his knives.
Like, you did pay attention to the scene, because all you're looking at is this guy going crazy in the back.
Yeah, Meek was the man. Real quick, because I don't want to gloss over this, but when Hela first arrives on Asgard, she's confronted by 2/3 of the Warriors 3. Fandral, and I forget the other guy's name, but he's played by the guy who also played the Punisher. What's his name? Not Thomas Jane or Frank Castle. Jeez. What's his name?
Punisher?
Yeah. What's the guy's name? The Warriors 3. So you got Fandral, the Asian, Fandral, Hogun, and Volstagg.
Yeah.
Volstagg played by, because this is just really, Ray Stevenson. That's who it is. They have about less than 10 seconds of screen time before they're killed off.
Yeah, not even.
I remember I nudged Mike and I was like, look, that's Shazam, because Fangirl is